Hello class, this is a video tutorial on basic equation solving. And in this video we will learn to solve equations using inverse operations and the idea of balancing equations. So before we begin, first we need to learn what an equation is. So an equation is a mathematical statement involving a variable, or as we commonly call them, pronumerals. So it involves variables, a variable or pronumerals, numbers, and an equals sign. So just for example, here's a simple example of an equation. So we have 2x plus 3 equals 11. So in this example, the pronumeral, remember, represents a number. And in this case, this is a number that we do not know. So I'm going to draw a little arrow here. This is a number with unknown value. We don't know the value of this letter here. So this can be read as 2 times something plus 3 equals 11. Some of you may be astute enough to figure out what it is, but we will learn a method for solving equations, and it involves inverse operations and balancing equations. Okay, and these two will work hand in hand to help us solve equations of any sort. So first we will learn what inverse operations are. Inverse operations. Inverse operations are just the I'd call them reverse operation. You can call it that as well. So for example, if I've given you the operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, the inverse operations of each of these would be the reverse of them. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. The inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication is division. And the inverse of division is multiplication. So we do the reverse of each of these. And alongside inverse operations, we must know about balancing equations. And balancing equations states, because in any equation, if you take a look at here, the equal sign splits the equation into two sides. So here we have an equal sign then and from the equals sign, we have the left-hand side, LHS, left-hand side, and the right-hand side. Okay? And balancing equation states that what is done on the left-hand side must, underline, must also be done on the right-hand side. Okay, so now using these, we'll begin looking at how to solve first addition and subtraction equations. Okay, so let's take a few examples here. So we'll finally get to it. This is solving equations, and in this video it'll only be addition and subtraction. Okay, so here we go. Let's take a few questions here. We'll take question A. Question A, we'll say it's x plus 3. Okay, so now we have to figure out what is the inverse, x plus 3 equals 11. Okay, so what operation is being done to x? Can you see how it's going to be x, so some number plus 3. So the inverse operation is we have to subtract 3 on both sides. So the inverse operation of plus 3 is minus 3. And since we're subtracting 3 on the left, we must also subtract 3 on the right. So I write these out. Okay, when you first start, it's always good to actually write out your inverse operation. Okay, so now what happens is what is 3 minus 3? Isn't that just 0? So on the left hand side, since the 3 goes away, we only have x remaining. So I'm just going to rewrite x on the left hand side here. And then the equals sign remains where it is. And what is 11 minus 3? 11 minus 3 is 8. So if we were to substitute 8 in for x in the original, we should get the same solution that it says here. It should be 11. So let's test that out and do it in pencil. This is always good to test and see whether your solution is correct. So let's substitute this in for x. So we have 8, because here 8 plus 3 equals 11. 8 plus 3 is 11 equals 11, and this is true. Okay, and now I know this looks silly, but what happens if we solve this equation? Okay, and we got, let's say, x is equal to 7. So let's say x is equal to 7. Let's test that number out. Let's do it over down here. So if we substituted x for 7, so here's x, and we're going to substitute 7 there. So we get 7 plus 3 is equal to 11. But when we add these two, we get 10 is equal to 11. And we know that this is definitely not true. Since this isn't holding true, x does not equal 7. Okay, so that's the idea here. Okay, so I'm gonna just erase this. We'll do a few more, okay? You should always test your solutions. Okay, question B, we have x minus 3 is equal to 6. Once again, the same question. What is the inverse operation happening here on the pronumeral? Okay, well, it's x minus 3, so the inverse operation must be plus 3. Okay, and since we're adding 3 on the left, we must also add 3 on the right, which will give us, once again, minus 3 plus 3, that's just 0, which leaves us with x on its own on the left. Equal sign remains where it is. 6 plus 3 is 9. And if we test it again, take a look. Let's pretend that 9 is here. 9 minus 3 equals 6. Well, that's true, so this is correct. A, B. Let's go question C. How about if we had 12 plus A is equal to 17? Okay, this looks a little odd, doesn't it? Because now the letter's on this side. Well, you may not see it, but this 12 is actually the operation. There's actually a plus 12 here. But in mathematics, if the first number is positive, there's no need to write that plus 12. But we'll leave it in here just so that you understand that. So if A is the pronumeral, plus 12 is the operation, which means the inverse operation is minus 12. So I'm going to subtract 12 on this one as well. Okay, which leaves us, so once again, plus 12 minus 12, that is 0, which leaves us with A by itself here. Okay, and again, like I said, since we know it's positive and there's nothing in front of it, we don't write the plus. We just leave it out. And what is 17 minus 12? 17 minus 12 is 5. Okay, let's move on. Question D. We have negative 5 plus m equals 15. Okay, once again, if you take a look, m is the variable or the pronumeral, and minus 5 is our operation. So if minus 5 is the operation, we do the inverse, so we add 5. And since we're adding 5 here, we must also add 5 here. Minus 5 plus 5, that's 0. M is the only number remaining. 15 plus 5 is 20. Okay, so I'm just going to write a few for you. I want you to go ahead, give them a go. And as soon as I finish writing them, I'm going to solve them for you. A, B, C, D. Question E. B plus 1 equals 11. Question F is minus 6 plus C equals 20. Question G. Question G is K plus 4 equals 24. And question H is minus 30 plus D equals 100. You can go ahead and pause the video now because I'm going to be answering these questions very quickly. Here we go. Inverse operation is minus 1. So subtracting 1 on both sides, B is remaining. 11 minus 1 is 10. C is our variable, so it's going to be minus 6, the operation. The inverse is plus 6, so adding 6 to this, we get 0. So C is by itself. 20 plus 6 is going to be 26. Our pronumeral is K. Our operation is plus 4. The inverse is minus 4, so subtracting 4 on the left hand side, we get K by itself. And if we're going to minus 4 here, we're going to minus 4 from 24. 24 minus 4 is 20. And in this one, we have minus 30 as our operation. So we're going to add 30, add 30. That will give us D on its own. 100 plus 30 is 130. I hope that gave you a good overview on basic equation solving.